Hey, welcome to the Book of Dad Radio Show. I'm Dr. Robert Benson. As always, before we get started, we want to say thank you to Jehovah. Thank him for his son, Jesus Christ. Thank him for our families. Thank him for work and our ability to do the things we're able to do. Book of Dad Radio Show, Life and Spirit Online, that's a network, and I'm hanging out with my main man, engineer extraordinaire, Iceberg Slim, Eddie G.
I don't know about today. Continue.
Hey, man, that's where genius comes in. You know, when you figure out and work out the problems, you know?
I hear you.
But today, we're not going to focus on anything negative. We got a great guest, a guy who is a very renowned and very celebrated screenwriter, location scout, and producer, Mr. Eric P. Granger. Eric, welcome to the Book of Dad Radio Show, man. How you doing?
Oh, man, I'm glad to be here, proud to, and I appreciate the invitation.
No doubt. We're glad you're here. You know, I was reading your credits. You got to talk to us about some of the stuff that you do. You know, I producer, but one thing that interested me right off the bat was location scout. What is that all about?
Yeah. A location scout is when a producer or director want to do a movie, and after they break down all their scenes that they're going to be needed in the movie, they say, okay, we have to find this location. It could be an old warehouse. It could be the side of a cliff. It could be a walk in the woods, something like that. And so when they come to our particular area in the Adirondack Mountains, I do a lot of scouting in this area for different shoots and everything from commercials. I've done stuff for LL Bean, magazines, TV shows, film. So I'm a location scout in this area in particular and in Costa Rica. I work down there too.
In Costa Rica.
Yeah.
Interesting. You know, the thing I was going to ask, because we're down here in Atlanta, and Atlanta is essentially, I would have to say, number 2 on the location zone, if you will, in the industry. And I was going to ask, what is it about an area that makes it attractive to people like yourself and organizations to do these types of things?
Well, Atlanta has a lot to offer from the size of the big city, urban areas, rural areas, countryside. You don't have to go far out of Atlanta and get into country, as you know. So true. It offers a lot of diverse locations. We don't have that same, there's no tall buildings in downtown streets for car chases and things like that up here. So I think it's a different kind of, although we did do one car chase now that I think about it, but that was a while back. And it just offers different things and depends on what that particular director and producer are looking for. So we're working with an Amazon thing right now that they're maybe doing a new winter limited series up here about an ice planet or something there. So we're working with those guys right now to try to get them the right locations for what they're looking for.
You know, I see that you're a screenwriter.
Yeah.
Have you, we'll talk more about some of the screenwriting you've done and some of your work and some of your acknowledgments and accolades and such. But have you performed yourself? Have you done the classics, as it were, or performed in roles and things of this sort?
I've done several extra roles on films. Just little stuff, though. We need someone to play the bodyguard for the president. Quick, throw a uniform on this guy, that kind of thing. I've played a few roles and had a few bit lines, but it's all just background stuff. Yeah, I've never taken on, in film, I've never taken on any big roles. I did a lot of theater in the day, and did a lot of theater where I played the lead roles in some of those bigger productions.
I talked to before a guy who was involved in theater and in film. There were some different or idiosyncratic things about both of them. Talk to us about some of the experiences you've had in one versus the other and why they present themselves differently while doing either one of them.
I think theater is you get immediate feedback. That's probably the biggest thing. Plus it's live, and if you do make a mistake, there's no cut, retake, going over again. You just cover your mistakes with your fellow actors and try to get back on track. So it's a quite a bit different experience because again, that immediate feedback. But in there, the similarity is that on stage you have to ignore the audience even though you're getting feedback, just as the way an actor on film has to ignore the camera, that the camera's sitting right there right in front of their face. They have to ignore that and be into the role. It's that part is kind of the same, but it's particularly if you do a comedy, sometimes it's tough because the audience may really break into a good laugh, hopefully if you're good, and then you have to just maintain, but you also have to time the audience, because the last thing you want to do is step on their laughs or step on their any reaction that you get from an audience live, because they'll start shutting off. And so you got to sometimes just hold your position and wait till the crowd calms back down again and then go on with your next line. So it is two different worlds. The part that's the same is to engulf the character, become that character, and you have to react as that character depending on what happens. It makes it more interesting on stage because the actor you're playing against may give you the line differently one night than he does the night before. So your reaction has to be different. You can't react funny if he messes up his line or if he drops a line or something. So it keeps you on your toes more than the stage does. That's for sure.
I think it's interesting. I've looked at a lot of comedians who perform live, and you can tell that there were adjustments made to phase out the laughter because some of them are so funny that they elevate the audience through the volume. But there's actually stuff on stage that's recording the comedian at the same time. So you really don't get the full effect. But let me ask you one thing. I used to work over in Manteo, North Carolina, which is on the Outer Banks. And they have a production over there every year called The Lost Colony. And I was wondering if you heard about that, because I was informed or told that like 85% of people in stage and in theater have gone through that production, either as a performer or as a stage hand or stage hand or someone who does something in that industry. Are you familiar with that production at all?
I am not. And both my sons are in North Carolina, so I gotta, I guess, bone up on gotta do my homework here. But I'm not familiar with that production, no.
Okay. Well, again, it's this production about the Lost Colony where the British came over and they set themselves up there and established a colony, and they named a couple of the places after some of the natives who they met and became very, very friendly with. So, but I'm mistaken. A guy like yourself, but we'll move on from that. So let's talk a little bit about what it entails to be a producer in this industry, and particularly in stage.
Particularly on stage?
Yeah.
Wow.
Is there something different about being a producer on stage versus in film?
But very much so. Very much so.
Okay.
What you don't generally have to worry about is the sound, as we all know how much fun sound can be, and the cameras and that sort of thing. But the production, you have to worry a lot about, or concern yourself a lot about sets moving in and out, and the physical building of each scene becomes a big part of production on stage. So timing things and layering things that you don't want to leave the audience too much on hold while you're trying to change scenes. I think a lot of I've done both straight show plays and musicals. And so a musical on stage is also another different critter, because then you've got an orchestra pit to deal with and music directors and such. But
love the word critter.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't realize I even said that. But it is in that it has its own set of problems. You still have lighting, which is kind of equal to the other media, but to produce a play where there's quick changes for the actors, sometimes complete costume changes, you have to build that in to the scene. When someone exits and when they come back on, and is there time? Is there not time? What do you put in between? And it's it's a different animal, but it's just as it's just as worrying and just as hectic as film, but in a totally different way. Yeah, I also produce live events, so I do a lot of live
Okay.
events here in Lake Placid. Um, I'm kind of sick that way, that I love thinking on your feet and I love reacting to whatever the circumstances is around you. But that's it's a lot different than being able to say cut. Oh, you might change that light bulb over there. Don't forget your line over here on film. And here it just goes. You just go
It
with
goes.
it.
Well,
It goes.
let's talk more about that after the break. We're going to talk a little bit more about COVID and how the industry itself and in general went into the stagnate or pause, if you will. But this is Book of That Radio Show. I'm Dr. Robert Benson, hanging out with Eric P. Granger, excuse me,
No problem.
and my main man, Eddie G. And we'll be right back.
See why listeners from over 150 countries around the world follow the Book of Dad radio show. Join Dr. Robert Benson and Eddie G as they chat with special guests who share their stories and information that will change your life. Watch and listen on lifeandspiritonline.com or subscribe to the Book of Dad radio show on Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcast. Brought to you by the NASCA Network.
Hey, and we're right back. Book of That Radio Show. I'm Dr. Robert Benson with my main man, Eddie G. and Eric P. Granger. Hey, be sure to get us where you get your podcasts. We're also on YouTube, so we've got a lot of people listening to our shows because we have great people coming by to hang out with us and talk about great things. When we left off, we were trying to pick Eric's brain about some of the stuff that's going on in the industry. The industry that kind of went through a little pause, if you will, just about like everything else. There were some stagnant issues surrounding COVID-19. Very briefly, and as we get through this, we wanted to ask him to talk about the increase or gradual re-entry, if you will, of the industry, as it were. And do you ever think at some point we'll get back to where things used to be?
Oh, wow. I think the whole world is readjusting, even as they're coming out, as we're coming out of it. A lot of businesses, as you know, decided, hey, let's keep our employees home anyway, not pay for the big building and all this stuff goes with that. So the movie industry is also adjusting. I don't think it's going to come back to the way it was. I don't think it. I don't want to be a soothsayer here, but I don't see it coming back to exactly the way it was. As far as on pause, it's still on pause for the most part, slowly coming out. I know LA is having a resurgence right now of the COVID, and there's been a lot of talk over the last several weeks of coming out of it and getting back online and getting people together and stuff. And now it's taken a little bit of a step back again. They're pausing again a little bit more, but their planning has picked up. I would say for the first year of COVID, all planning stopped. People wouldn't, because it was so uncertain. You know, we're not even going to plan for anything until we don't know what's going to happen 2 years from now and 3 years from now. But I think that has gone away. So now they're starting to look down the road from now. I've got one production. I spoke with the director last night, actually, and they're talking about in 10 days, they're going to start the first shoot of that production. So it's getting back together. There are some pretty strict rules for production. When the crews do get back together, I think their crews are going to be smaller than they've been in the past, for less problems for the production company if the crews are smaller. So instead of having 5 guys doing lighting, you might have only 3 guys doing lighting, that kind of thing. But it is starting. Some companies have started already filming and shooting again, but it's still slow. It's not anywhere near it was 18 months ago. It's not anything like that. Back then I had literally 4 projects just stopped dead in the water when this thing first hit. Back in the March of 2020, it just slammed the door on it, and they said, we're not doing anything until we figure out what's going on in the world here. So it's slowly coming out. I think it's going to be a long time before it gets back to the way that we want it to be honest with you. But at least the people I've been talking with, they're planning to get back together on, before I'd call them 6 months ago and they'd say, oh, we don't know. We're not doing anything right now.
Mhm.
But it's coming out. It's just slow.
Well, Eric, I know you've won numerous awards in the festival circuit, and I'm sure that's an interesting process. How do you get involved in getting your films and your screenwriting and all those things to participate in these festivals?
Most of the festivals, it's not that hard to enter. It's usually just a fee, and then it goes before panels of judges, that kind of thing, in the respective festival. And when I began this journey here, writing journey, I went to a lot of festivals because everyone knows that there's nothing beats face to face, no matter who you talk to. So I went to an awful lot of festivals to introduce myself, talk to people, and say, yes, I'm a finalist in this one, and let's see how it goes. And just a lot of mingling. That kind of seems to be very big in the Hollywood business. It's you could have the next War and Peace, but if you don't get to the right people, it doesn't matter. So it does help that you achieve accolades with your screenplays. I think I have 18 Best Screenplay Awards now, with multiple scripts. And so you have to build kind of a reputation that you're not just a flash in the pan. Oh, I wrote one screenplay, and then because they won't talk to you if you were one up, or believe me. And so it takes time to build a reputation and go to all these festivals. Some of them are elegant and red carpet and all that, and some of them are a little more down to earth. And I've run the gambit when it comes to film festivals. I've been to many of them. And we have a film festival here in Lake Placid, which I'm on the board of directors, and I run the short film competition of our festival here. So I was just down in New York City, at the New York City Independent Film Festival, where I'm also a judge at that one. So I was just down there a couple weeks ago, helping them with that festival.
Wow.
It's you meet a lot of great people. You meet a lot of at these festivals, and you meet a lot of interesting people too. That
I'm sure it's a schmooze festival.
It is. It really is. Yeah. It's I learned to just kind of sit back and listen a lot. Probably the best lesson I ever learned in life was to shut up and listen. But it's some people, they're full of themselves, and some people are modest and super modest, and it's just fun to see I get great characters from my future writings by just watching some of these people. That's for sure.
Wow. Eric, you mentioned that you're up there in Lake Placid, New York. I mean, that town has some fame behind it, but it's also in a region where you, at least once a year, at some point, you're locked down. You can't, there's not a whole lot you can do because of the snow and things like that. And I was just wondering if that being in that type of environment and being in the COVID protocols in the last year,
Mm-hmm.
Did that assist with your creative niche at all? Were you able to sit back and really start spitting things down on paper, because you had this dead spot, if you will? Did it help you write anything more?
Yeah, I have. I did learn to shift gears and take advantage of the fact that I couldn't go anywhere. Mm-hmm. We handle the winters up here. That part doesn't bother us. The COVID stopped things pretty dead up here. And it did give me a chance to spend lots and lots of hours on the laptop, but I didn't write anything regarding COVID, because through my associations online, I kind of watched that all of a sudden 1,000 people were writing about COVID because they were in the same situation as all of us were, and they took advantage of it by just writing about the COVID. So I decided not to, on purpose, not to write anything about the COVID, and so I used it to turn my attentions to other projects that I'm working on. I'm doing an adaptation of a wonderful book right now that's pretty phenomenal. And I spent a lot of time on that one. Most of the stuff comes from somewhere up in this silly brain, out of my imagination. But this one's a little different because it's already a book, but it's a powerful book. It's a great book. So I can't wait to see this one made into a movie. Yeah.
That's very, very interesting how you have somewhat of a mandate already in place, because if you are screenwriting a book, you don't want to get too far away from the intentions of the author. Is there an unwritten agreement or kind of understood agreement between you and an author before you do that?
Yes. I've never had a project where my creative is restrained, where my creative is restrained. I have to stay pretty much true to the story. And of course, no one remembers the exact dialogue of what happened in 1972 or something like that in this book. So I have to create the dialogue as I see the characters would have said it. So that makes it's a different for me, but I just believe in this project so much, and I collaborate a lot with the author. We went through the outline together, and I said, this is the route I want to take. It's about her story, but there's some creative license in it to adjust a movie is different than a novel, just in its cadence and its beats, and when to hit the highs and the lows, and when to when to hit those certain areas that a novel might be more monotone, and where it's pretty structured for a film to hit them at the right time. So, and she's wonderful. She gives me full license to do all this stuff. So we have a good agreement. We talk often. Yeah.
Oh, outstanding. Hey, well, this is the Book of That Radio Show. Again, we're talking to Eric P. Granger and my main man, Eddie G., engineer extraordinaire. It's Book of That Radio Show, and we'll be right back.
You have something special. You have greatness in you. Hello, I'm Les Brown, Mrs. Mamie Brown's baby boy. I want you to spread the word to your family members and friends to listen to LesBrownGreatnessRadio.com. Absolutely. And let me share with you why we're going to be focusing on positive things, because whatever you focus on the longest becomes the strongest. And now more than ever, when the suicide rate has increased over 33%, when the suicide rate of young children between 5 and 11 has doubled, people feeling hopeless and stressed out and powerless, we need programming that can bring out the greatness in them. And that's what we will be focused on. When you listen, it will be an experience that will transform your life. LesBrownGreatnessRadio.com. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Okay, welcome back to the Book of Dad Radio Show. Today, we have an excellent guest, a great producer, screenwriter, sometimes actor, Mr. Eric P. Granger, and he has really given us a lot of information behind the scenes on what happens in the industry. Eric, thank you for being here today. We just wanted to know a couple more things. One,
Sure.
being a producer and going through the process of getting money for your film. We talked about that earlier.
Oh boy.
Off air. What is that process like to go from screenwriting to getting a deal to getting it produced and getting it out to the public?
Wow, there's just so many avenues. There's not one way to do it, to be honest with you. There was a book out a few years ago. It said getting your screenplay through the Hollywood maze, and I read that, and it's like, well, there's not really a one way to do it. You know, I'd say the biggest way is making connections, talking to a lot of people, building your reputation. Sometimes a producer will come, a director or a producing company will come to you, and they'll say, oh, I like your screenplay, I've heard about it. And they already have everything in place. Or I help them get things in place by giving them more information, about the scenes and who I think would be good for the characters involved. And then it's the industry is changing a lot. If you're not one of the big Warner Brothers, Sony, one of those guys, and you're an independent person, the industry has changed so much because the financiers now want you to have a complete package in place, which means distribution. So what you have to do is it's kind of a sideways way of getting around things, is you have to get a distribution deal before the financiers will come in and say, okay, now that you've done all the work and you've sold the thing already to a distributor, now we'll finance it. So it's and they want to, again, the industry is changing so fast, especially for indie filmmakers. They want an attachment, which is a letter of agreement from a particular actor or a particular producer, that you can take as a package to your finance people and say, look, now I've got, don't quote me on this, but I've got a Tara Reid, or I've got someone already attached to this script, and now I've got the distribution. Then it's actually fairly easy, not easy, but it's easier to get financing. And it seems to be now the only way. I think the days are gone when you can just go up and talk to someone and say, look, I've got this great script and I need $5 million to make this indie film. I think those days are gone because of the investments. And return on investments have been so scattered. Some of them are great. You know, you all hear the stories about someone who made a film for $100,000 and it made $50 million for them. But for every one of those, there's 99 where they spent $50 million and they made 99 back. So the industry's changed in that now they want a good package before you're going to get money. They want a package deal. Okay, I've got this guy lined up to be the director. I've got this person, lined up to be in the film, and they've got a letter of agreement from them and a letter agreement from them, and I got a letter agreement from the distributor, whether it's Lionsgate or someone of that ilk. And then you go to the finance people, and then they're actually pretty easy with the money. Not easy, but they're easier to get the money out of them. It's an evolving thing. It's changing, and now with the COVID, I think the money is tighter, but there's more avenues for media nowadays too, between the Netflixes and the Hulus and all that kind of Amazon and everybody. So everybody's kind of on this weird fence, like, yeah, we want a lot more media. We need media. We need content. We need content over here. But the other guy's going, I'm not giving you any money until you got the package ready. So now you got to worry about getting the package ready to get the money before you go to the. It's a juggling act, is what it is. It's a big juggling act.
Well, you made me think of another question for you.
Sure.
With the advent of Netflix and Prime and every network beginning to create their own media, it seems like it's opened a gate for people like yourself, where you have different ways to distribute. And some of them, I compare it to a couple of years ago in the NBA. All the teams had all this extra money. So when all the free agents went out, they were getting these deals for $100 million, and they weren't even that good of a player. And then they felt bad after the deals were done. So now it seems like, because some of the content that you might see on a Netflix or and it has big stars in it, but some of them, they don't seem to be the same quality or the same amount of time has been put into it because of the competition. They want to get out the product so they can compete with the other set-top box company. What do you think about that?
It's true, but those guys are hard to get into.
Okay.
If you're not in the Netflix club, you as an independent, it is very hard to get into. Netflix is only one of many out there, media now, but it's hard to get that door open if you're not buddied up with the right people.
Okay.
It's just much more difficult. They have it's not impossible. Some people do break through, but it's usually because they know someone who knows someone to get seen. And again, I go back to, you could have the best war and peace, but if you don't know the right people, the world's never going to see it. But the media content is everywhere now. I agree with that. And I've kind of branched a little bit in that direction. I've just written 2 pilots. One I'm trying to get into Netflix right now, and it's a sci-fi thing. But I'm also doing it for a TV, a comedy that I'm working on for a 30-minute comedy show. And it's just a matter of keeping keep pounding on the doors and keep going to the right people and putting the package together.
Yeah, I love what you said about is who you know, and the nepotism and such is big in the industry. But let's take a few minutes here and talk about your projects that are coming up, some things you want us to know that we can look out for and where we can find some stuff.
The one that I'm really excited about right now is this adaptation that I'm doing for the wonderful lady, Amy Kardashian. It's not one of the Kardashians, it's the Kardashian. It's different, but the point is, this woman is literally been through hell all her life, and she does nothing but bring light to every situation. Her goal in life is to help humanity and do the best that she can do to make the world a better place, even though it's just beat the crap out of her. And that's what the book is about. Everything she's been through, all the losses she's suffered. And somehow she's just one of the happiest, nicest people I've ever met. And when I read her book the first time, because I read it a second time, then I actually listened to it because it is on it's on the audiobooks. I sought her out, and I said, "Look, I want to write. I want to make this a movie. I want people to know that the world can be a better place. I want people to see." It changed me when I read that. It's just like, oh my God, if this woman can have her attitude after everything she's been through, then you know what, I can be a better person. I can do better. I can approach life a little bit better, because everyone has things they put up with in life, but not compared to what she's put up with. She had literally, during the Lebanese war, she had her brother explode, bombed, and right in front of her while she was talking to him, and that kind of stuff. And she's lost several relatives because of the war and what she endured during the war. And oh God, and then she's like happiest, wonderful person I've ever met. It's like, wow. So the point being, I really love this project. We're working hard to do the last draft of it so that we can start putting our package together and present this one. But it's a wonderful project. I just can't wait to see this on the screen.
So what's your handles?
Pardon?
Your handles, YouTube, or not YouTube, but Twitter or
me? Well, ericpgranger.com is my writing. You can find almost all information there. My scripts, my awards. Okay. You'll see that I've written comedies, romantic, adventure, sci-fi, a little bit of everything. I'm all over the place, but it's to me, it's about telling unique stories. And they always ask you, oh, what is your story? It's like they want to hear Godzilla meets, Family Ties, or they just want to know. They always have to do that. And I go, you know what? My stories are unique. They don't have an attachment to anything else. They're just unique, and they're standalone. And so I like the fact that I'm all over the place. It gives me a chance to do the fun stuff and then the serious stuff. And I wrote one about recently about human trafficking out of Nigeria, and so it's a more serious note kind of thing. Working with a wonderful lady over in Nigeria, over there, getting all the information together. So I'm kind of. I don't think I can wear just one badge there. I think I'm all over the place.
There you go. Hey, well, Eric, it's certainly been a pleasure having you on the Book of Dad radio show. we'll definitely get you back and especially to find out more about these projects that you have coming up. They're very intriguing and interesting. But I'm gonna
Oh,
ask
well,
Eddie
I
J.
appreciate it so much.
Okay, no doubt, no doubt. Eddie, you got any closing thoughts?
I just want to say it's been pretty interesting talking to you, Eric. And I need to get more into some of the projects that you've done. That human trafficking here in Atlanta is one of the largest places for human trafficking in the United
I know that,
States.
yeah.
So your subject matter is pretty important. I like what you said about doing uplifting stories that change people's lives, and gravitating to those stories as you seeked out the author that you're doing the film for. So we appreciate you doing that. And that's the type of people we like to talk to, people who are looking for positive reasons to help others through their skill and their craft. So we appreciate you for that.
Well, I appreciate your time, guys.
No doubt, no doubt. Hey, well, this has been the Book of Dad radio show. I'm Dr. Robert Benson with my main man, Eddie G, and a great guest in Eric P. Granger. But we're going to close out the show with a quote as we usually do. And this quote today is mine. And it goes like this: life's success is built on team interactions as total effort aimed meticulously. Book That Radio Show. We'll talk to you next time.